Welcome to Dry Tortugas, the most remote national park in the United States. This tiny outcropping marks the end of the Florida Keys and is home to Fort Jefferson, thousands of nesting birds, and pristine snorkeling. Yes, there's one boat a day that goes to the island, but this is a flight review channel after all, so I'm flying there on a truly unique flight on the Havilland DCH-3 Otter. On the way to the park, we'll see shipwrecks, dolphins, turtles, before circling the fort itself. What's it like to fly to Dry Tortugas on Key West Seaplane Adventures? Let's find out. And you know what? This is also my 100th flight review on the channel. 100! So I can't think of a better way of celebrating that milestone than taking such a unique and fun flight. People line up to take photos in Key West in front of the southernmost point buoy, which it's not, by the way. That's in Fort Zachary Taylor State Park. But the Florida Keys actually continue on past Key West. The very end of the line is Dry Tortugas National Park, 70 miles from Key West. There's one boat a day that takes visitors to the park, the Yankee Freedom. There's nothing wrong with the boat. I like boats, but it's a full day trip there and back with an 8 a.m. departure and returning to Key West at 5:30 p.m. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes of sailing each way, but the plane is only 35 minutes. Key West Seaplane Adventures is the only operator of flights to Dry Tortugas. Others may sell tickets, but I suggest going direct. It's not cheap, but nothing in Key West is cheap. The half-day trip, which is 4 hours, how is that remotely even half a day, costs $397. That gets you 2.5 hours on the island. The full-day trip gets you 6.5 hours on the island, but costs $697. It costs that much more because the groups are staggered and the planes are constantly flying back and forth. For the full day, they need to fly empty legs. The Yankee Freedom boat isn't that cheap either at $200 per person and gets you 4.5 hours on the island. So I paid the $397 for the ticket on the seaplane. So hey, would it kill the 94% of you who are not subscribed to just click a button? Just a button! I gotta make that money back somehow. When I went to book, they were sold out. Not just for the day, but for months in advance. So yeah, I suggest booking ahead of time. However, there is a wait list. I put my name down and got an email less than a day later that there was an opening, and I was able to book the ticket. See? Being a single, solo traveler has its benefits. The flight departs from the general aviation area of the airport in a rather nondescript hangar. You check in and need to pay the $15 park entrance fee in cash. I foolishly left my America the Beautiful pass at home, which would have worked. You're also given a cooler with drinks and snorkel equipment. The waiting area is rather quaint, and there's a video about the flight and the park on loop. There is some helpful information, such as a guide on the best and safest places to snorkel. One neat thing was that my ticket was handed out with a brief bio of my pilot and his experience, likely to put passengers at ease. His name was Brian. 2 aircraft were flying a few minutes apart, and we walked out to our respective aircraft with our respective pilots. There's quite the step up onto the body of the aircraft. The seats are in a 1-1, so everyone gets a window seat, with a total of 10 seats. You can sit up by the pilot, but a kid wanted to do that, which was fine by me. The DCH-3 Otters were produced between 1951 and 1967. Today's plane was number 378 of 466, built in 1960. There's no traditional air vents, but there are these little air scoops in the windows that you can rotate to get more or less air directed towards you. We taxied towards the runway and took off towards the east. The plane leapt into the air easily, in a way I've never felt before. Flying time was 35 minutes at whatever Brian felt like 100 feet. We banked to the right and headed out to sea. The good news was that Brian made a point to do everything exactly in reverse on the way back, so as long as you stayed on the same side of the aircraft each way, you'd get to see everything. You wear ear protectors that play music, and Brian would narrate as we flew over something of interest. I'm not going to do the same thing here, but there were some definite highlights. There's the quicksands, underwater sand dunes that move with the currents. You fly over 2 shipwrecks that are visible from the air. The first is the Arbutus, a shipwreck-finding vessel that, well, also sank. Then there's the Patricia, a World War II US destroyer sunk for target practice. We saw turtles and sharks that were nearly impossible to film from the plane. But we did see a pod of dolphins, and Brian circled around so that my side of the plane could see them as well. After about 35 minutes of flying time, the park came into view. Sometimes the plane does a full circuit of the island, but to protect the nesting birds, the plane made a low pass before turning around to land. I've never been in a seaplane before, so this was all quite new to me. Brian then taxied the seaplane to the beach and reversed it onto the sand, before hopping out to tie it down. So, what is there to see on the island? Well, there's 3 main things to do. The first is the beach and snorkeling. Only 2% of Dry Tortugas National Park is above the water. There's some great snorkeling along the base of the wall, or by the 2 coaling docks. I didn't see that much, but there were a few colorful fish. Then there's the fort. Fort Jefferson was built to project US power into the Gulf of Mexico against the Spanish Empire, but quickly became obsolete. During the Civil War, it became a prison for US deserters, and after the war, housed those associated with Lincoln's assassination, including Dr. Mudd. Finally, there's the birds. I've muted the audio up until now for a reason. While there's up to 299 species of birds to see on this tiny island, today it was dominated by the nesting frigate birds. That whole side of the island was closed off for the nesting season. With only 2.5 hours on the island, I went snorkeling in a single spot along 2 sides of the wall, ate lunch, then walked around the fort. I really didn't have that much time for anything else before Brian returned to pick up my group. We boarded by walking onto the float, then waited for the other aircraft to go first. Taking off from the water was just about as exhilarating as landing. We took off straight to minimize the disruption to birds. We retraced our flight path and soon arrived back at Key West. Then came the landing. I've never had a landing like this before, so I'll just play the whole thing. We were at very high, at quite the angle, but Brian lined it up and we dropped like a stone before gently touching down. So Key West Seaplane Adventures to Dry Tortugas. It was awesome, and a truly memorable flight where I was grinning ear to ear from start to finish. Yes, it's incredibly expensive, but the unique flight, aerial sightseeing, and truly remote and unique destination makes it absolutely worth it in my book. This is the 100th flight review on the channel, and here's to many, many more to come. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click that button and please subscribe for many more flight reviews to come. I'll see you on the next one.